peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
A very good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining us. This is Diaspora Dispatches. We get to bring you the latest news from the continent of Africa. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you are tuned in. Today we will start our news from Zambia, where Zambia's new president, Hakainde Hichilema, will not move from his private residence to State House, reports the state-owned Zambia Daily Mail newspaper. This is despite his predecessor Edgar Lungu vacating the premises this week. The former president is now renting a house owned by China-based Zambian footballer Stopila Sunzu, according to local media reports. The Secretary General of Mr. Hichilema's party, Batuke Imenda, is quoted as saying that while the new head of state will work at State House, he will carry on living at his private residence, which is called Community House. And then we head over to Ethiopia. The rebel fighters say a government blockade on the northern region of Tigray is to blame for the devastation that has left nearly 1 million people on the verge of starvation, but the federal government has blamed the situation on them. The Tigray People's Liberation Front, which is fighting the government, says the health system in the region has been crippled and measures against COVID are non-existent. It also says the economy is suffering, with banks having to close and power blackouts forcing companies out of business. The rebels say the international community's reluctance to take meaningful action against Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government has prolonged the blockade. However, the federal government in Addis Ababa says the rebels themselves have been obstructing aid efforts and attacking electricity workers. And then we head over to Chad, and the former Chadian President Hissène Habré is due to be buried today. The former president died on Tuesday from COVID complications while serving a life sentence in Senegal for crimes against humanity. His family said on Wednesday that he will be buried in Senegalese capital, Dakar. Habré was found guilty in 2016 of crimes committed while he was president from 1982 to 1990. We go to South Africa, and the decision to extradite former Mozambican Finance Minister Manuel Chang to his home country has been blocked pending a court hearing after a civil society organization objected. Reuters news agency reports quoting court documents. Mr. Chang is accused of corruption after allegedly receiving bribes to sign off on international loans in the tune of $2 billion intended to buy fishing trawlers and military patrol boats. However, much of it was allegedly diverted to government officials. Mr. Chang denies any wrongdoing. South Africa's Justice Minister Ronald Lamola has given an undertaking that Mr. Chang will not be extradited until a decision is handed down by a court on Friday, Reuters has reported. The hearing will focus on an application by the Mozambican Budget Monitoring Forum, a group of civil society organizations, to stop the extradition until arguments against it can be heard. It wants the ex-minister to be extradited to the U.S., where he is also wanted on a similar charges. We go to Niger, and the Defense Ministry in Niger says hundreds of Islamist fighters have attacked a military post in the southern region of Diffa. 16 soldiers were killed and 9 wounded, it said. The army counter-attacked, killing 50 members of the Boko Haram militant group. The insurgents regularly cross over from neighboring Nigeria. Earlier, the army in Niger said it had killed about 100 jihadists in the southwest of the country near the border with Burkina Faso. Islamist violence is intensifying in the Sahel region, especially in the border area between Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. And we go to Nigeria, another troubled country, and authorities in the country in central Plateau state have imposed a 24-hour curfew in the capital, Jos, after gunmen killed at least 18 people during a raid on Tuesday night on a mainly Christian community. Some reports suggest the death toll is way over 30. Officials say 10 suspects have been arrested in connection with the latest violence on the outskirts of the city. The state has seen years of frequent deadly communal clashes, and there has been growing tension in recent weeks following the killing of dozens of Muslims in the state capital. Witnesses and officials say the attackers stormed Zelwan Zangam community in the night, moving from house to house, shooting and hacking people to death, as well as setting homes ablaze. The authorities says the attack appeared carefully planned because a bridge linking the community with Jos was destroyed before the killings. It is not yet clear why the community was targeted. And also we go to Tanzania, where Tanzania's president on Wednesday said 5 people were dead, including 3 police officers, after a gun battle with an armed man near the French embassy in Dar es Salaam. It was not immediately clear whether the shootout in the heavily guarded diplomatic area was a terror attack. Liberatus Sabas, Tanzania's head of police operations, said the gunmen attacked 2 police officers, took their guns, and then began shooting sporadically towards the French embassy. Inspector General of Police Simon Siro told reporters the armed man was a foreigner, and police believe he was from Somalia. Siro also warned the attack could be linked to the jihadist insurgency in neighboring Mozambique, where a growing number of African nations are jointly pursuing the fighters. Morocco, and the foreign minister in Morocco, Nasser Bourita, says his country is keen to maintain strong ties with Libya after meeting with member of the Libyan Presidential Council Abdullah Al-Lafi in Rabat. During a joint press briefing, Mr. Bourati stated that Morocco will stand by Libya unconditionally to help promote security and stability of the country. According to the Moroccan minister, the issue of national reconciliation remains an essential factor to overcome the past and foster unity among all parties, especially as elections draw near in Libya. He stressed that Morocco, which has led an exemplary process in this field through the Equity and Reconciliation Commission, is willing to share its experience and guide Libya. And then we come back to East Africa, this time to South Sudan, and President Salva Kiir has affirmed his commitment to the conduct of the general elections of the end of the transitional period. According to the implementation matrix of the 2018 peace deal, many provisions should have been implemented by now. Already there have been 2 extensions of the pre-transitional period before the extension of the election deadline to 2023. In May 2019, the pre-interim period was extended by 6 months after the main opposition leader, Dr. Riek Machar, requested for more time to implement key parts of the security arrangements. Under the end of the 6 months, they again extended the pre-transitional period by 100 days. It ended in February 2020 when President Salva Kiir appointed opposition leader Dr. Riek Machar and other vice presidents, beginning the 3-year transitional period. But the unified army is yet to be deployed, as their graduation has been postponed several times. The revitalized peace agreement mandates the transitional government to organize elections 60 days before the end of the current transitional period. This is expected to enable the establishment of a democratically elected government. South Sudanese are supposed to go to polls in 2022, according to the peace deal, but in March 2021, the office of the president said the government was not prepared to organize any elections. I wonder if it's by choice or by design. All right, I don't know. And then we move over to Malawi, where Malawi's Constitutional Court has agreed to hear a challenge to last year's presidential election, a rerun from the opposition Democratic Progressive Party. President Lazarus Chakwera defeated the DPP's Peter Mutharika in the rerun after the court nullified the 2019 election, which Mutharika had won. The DPP argues the rerun should also be nullified after the High Court quashed the appointment of 4 DPP commissioners to the Malawi Electoral Commission. This past June, the High Court quashed the appointment of the DPP commissioners John Mathanga, Linda Kunja, Stephen Dewar, and Arthur Nanthura, saying the appointment was invalid and unconstitutional. The court acted after the governing Malawi Congress Party had challenged the appointment of the commissioners. In his ruling, George Kenyatta Nyirenda further said the quashing of the appointments did not affect the validity of the June 2020 rerun presidential election. But the opposition DPP said Nyirenda erred in his ruling because he touched on issues beyond his mandate. And then we end with Cameroon, and the country has turned public buildings on its northern border with Nigeria into temporary housing for former Boko Haram militants. Hundreds of Boko Haram members have been defecting from the Islamist group, including more than 200 on Sunday. Cameroon says its Center for Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration, or DDR, in Mary, in a northern town in the border with Nigeria, is now home to about 1,500 former Boko Haram militants. 3 weeks ago, the center had about 750 former militants. DDR officials in Mary said Tuesday most of the 237 former jihadist members who arrived this week included women and children. 100 are former Boko Haram fighters, all looking tired, unkept and hungry, officials said. I think that's some good news there on Cameroon's part. But I keep wondering, why can't they surrender to the Nigerian government itself? And yet over there, they're promised very wonderful packs. You know, once you surrender and you repent, there's a likelihood you will be absolved into the Nigerian army. There is a likelihood you'll get a scholarship to go study abroad. They've made it such a good idea to go and be a terrorist, because if you come back and repent after killing some people, then there are these wonderful things that awaits for you. Those are just some of the solutions that I've heard, some leaders out there in Nigeria propose as some incentives that will have more, Boko Haram fighters there repent and come back and be noble and meaningful members of the society. Speaking of which, we know President Buhari's son had a wedding a couple of days ago, which is congratulations. It's wonderful. And I think I've been looking through the social media. Nigerians had a lot to say about that wedding. It was quite lavish with so many helicopters bringing in who is who in Nigeria and abroad who attended that wedding. And on top of that, the guests were given the latest iPhone as a gift, and I think an iPad. And all of these people are rich people like you who can actually afford these things. So why Nigerians were talking, and just the disconnect with that, is the current status of the country as it is, and that a lot of people felt that was a bit tone deaf of President Buhari or the son on his part to do that, and such a one in the middle of a pandemic too. The doctors are striking, there's no money, and the issue with insecurity and all these things, and then you still can find time to do all this and in full display for people to see across Nigeria, especially where times are hard, not just in Nigeria but across the world. So I think that was a bit tone deaf on Buhari's family's side. You're giving the latest iPhone phones to people who can afford it. They just can afford it. And then the next, why I'm even talking about this, if I can go to a wedding where I'm given such a wonderful gift, suddenly I'll enjoy it. But the reason why this is an issue for me is just the other day, President Buhari, remember the op-ed we were talking about here a couple of days ago, where he was urging a country like the US to now, instead of just fighting the military, the Islamic insurgency, especially in the Sahel region militarily, he was saying now the US should come to a place like Nigeria and invest in infrastructure and offer these, young people opportunities, because it is opportunities that they lack. And then you hear him say that, and then you see what is happening in his personal life, and the disconnect there. President Buhari, okay, I think that will be left to Nigerians to say, what they make of that. But I think the timing was off. The whole thing. The doctors in Nigeria are on strike, as I told you there earlier, and a lot of things are happening that requires President Buhari's attention, and the way he's been dealing with them just goes to say, because he's been accused of being aloof and being out of touch, and clearly from this lavish wedding in the middle of a pandemic and everything that came with it is a clear example of how, aloof and how out of touch Buhari and perhaps his family is, But nevertheless, we wish his son a very happy life, in his new marriage. All right, so that is that. Another something that I want us to look at very quickly before I leave is the South Sudan, where President Salva Kiir has come now to say he's committed to conducting elections. Remember, elections in South Sudan, which I've told you here several times before, were supposed to be taking place, or was supposed to be taking place in 2022, but for some reason, early in the year, President Salva Kiir came out and said the country is not ready to carry out any elections. And I remember the UN and also some other bodies putting pressure on Salva Kiir and telling him, you know what, we are willing to come in and support the elections. So I think perhaps Salva Kiir convinced them that, you know what, this is why, and we are not ready as a country to have these elections. And when you look at this whole thing, I remember it brought a bit of some bad blood there, because President Salva Kiir announced this without consulting first with other stakeholders in the transitional government stakeholders, the opposition and everybody else that he's supposed to be consulting when he's making these very important decisions. But he did not do that. It was a unilateral decision that he made. The first Vice President Salva Kiir was not very happy, not Salva Kiir, but Riek Machar was not very happy with that, and other stakeholders as well. And so the UN, a couple of days after that, said, we are willing and we are ready to help South Sudan in whichever capacity and however you want us to ensure that South Sudan goes ahead with its elections 2022. But, now apparently that has been extended to 2023. So elections will not take place in 2022. Now, before these elections take place, there are a couple of other things that are supposed to have happened by right now in South Sudan that have not been able to happen. For instance, the army that was being trained, by right now they're supposed to have graduated, that has failed, and other key factors, that really made up this revitalized peace agreement of 2018. So from what I'm looking at and what I'm seeing, and the postponement now of that election, I think these people really don't want to move on as a country. And the reason why, because a lot of these things don't even need money. I know money has been an issue. Funding, finances has been a big issue when it comes to South Sudan, and a lot of things they feel should be done, the lack of funding. But a lot of these things can be done when you go through that list and, some of these things, the revitalized peace agreement. There's a lot of things that can be done without finances, per se. But I tend to have a feeling, and, I've always been skeptical about these leaders in South Sudan. If you ask me, I think if they can just get a whole new crop of leadership in South Sudan, that will do the country some good. These people we have right now, they don't mean well. And this is my personal opinion from what I've been seeing happening in that country. I don't think any of them means well for the people of South Sudan. I don't think any of them wants to see South Sudan move forward. I don't think any of them wants a stable South Sudan. I don't think any of them wants to see a day where South Sudanese can go back home and rebuild their country. Otherwise, they would have gone above and beyond and put their egos aside and put their personal interests aside and let the people and the country of South Sudan be the core of why they are even in leadership. But that has failed. Instead, we've seen a lot of selfishness and egocentrism play around, and power struggles and things like that. That has nothing to do with the benefit of the people of South Sudan who are languishing in refugee camps and in South Sudan itself and in Kenya here, in Uganda and other countries across the world. Nothing to do with that. Just very selfish individuals. It's just my personal opinion. I feel very strongly about this, okay? So now, from what I'm saying, I don't think any of them is committed to this. And even that 2023 new deadline that President Salva Kiir has put forth, I'm sure it will come and it will pass, because there's no willingness. there is no seriousness. There are things that they're supposed to be doing right now, that they're supposed to have implemented right now, that they have failed to do that, and they have their own reasons. That is because they want to keep, just playing out this as long as they can, so that they keep holding on to power, so that they just keep on wasting as much time as possible, because they know some of these things must be implemented before even an election can take place. So I think the delays are very, if you ask me, I think this is very intentional. What we're seeing in South Sudan is very intentional. And then after that, they'll start looking for people that they can accuse, just scapegoatism. But they know they really are not committed into implementing the revitalized peace agreement and other things that South Sudanese would require of them to do. And if I'm wrong, you can correct me, but that is just my personal feeling, because, we've been on this story for quite a while now. The insecurity in Nigeria, not even in Jos State, I think I've talked about that, but also, Jos State imposed a 24-hour curfew. I think that ends today after another skirmishes in the central plateau state. When Nigerians will get tired of this madness, then they will demand for a leadership that will actually offer leadership to the country. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. My name is Miriam Mugutu. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye for now.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.